Hello and welcome back to the HireWire podcast. I'm Mark.
And I'm Sarah.
It is Thursday, the 12th of February, 2026. And, if you've been watching the headlines to start the year, the economic signals are confusing, to say the least.
They really are.
We're seeing indicators flashing green in some sectors, red in others, and then there's the labor market, which just seems to be operating on a completely different set of rules.
It is a disorienting time. And we've just gotten this significant stack of fresh reports. The January 2026 numbers from ADP, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the JOLTS data.
A lot to get through.
It is. And the challenge is, if you just skim the headlines, you are probably going to draw conclusions that are the complete opposite of what's actually happening.
Which is exactly why today we're not just reading spreadsheets. We're going to analyze all this data specifically through the lens of industry legend Bob Marshall.
Bob has been dissecting this market for decades. His notes on these January reports are, they're just invaluable.
And he highlights this fascinating paradox that's shaping the recruitment landscape right now.
A paradox that's probably giving a lot of tech executives some sleepless nights.
Yeah, let's start right there, actually. For the last, 2 years, the big story has been all about artificial intelligence.
Well, AI all the time.
The fear was that it would replace jobs or that the only safe careers were in coding. But looking at Bob Marshall's analysis of the January data, the main bottleneck for the AI revolution isn't silicon. It's not software. It's plumbing.
Plumbing and electricity and industrial cooling. It sounds so mundane, doesn't it? But this is physical reality colliding with the virtual world.
There was that report in Wired last month that laid this all out.
Yes. The headline was basically that the real AI talent war is being fought over plumbers and electricians.
So explain that connection for us. Why does a large language model depend on a pipe fitter?
It all comes down to the infrastructure. AI lives in data centers. And these aren't just big rooms with computers anymore. They're massive industrial facilities. They consume enormous amounts of power, and they generate incredible amounts of heat. You just can't run a modern server farm without very complex industrial-grade cooling systems.
So no water, no cooling, the servers overheat, and the AI goes dark.
That's it, precisely. And to build those systems, you need skilled tradespeople. Bob Marshall highlighted data from the BLS predicting an annual shortage of, I think it was around 81,000 electricians.
81,000 a year.
Every single year through 2034. And a separate McKinsey study puts the number even higher. They think by 2030, we'll need an extra 130,000 electricians and almost 250,000 construction laborers.
That is just a huge labor gap. And the part of Bob's analysis that really stands out is how this shortage in tech is now starting to cannibalize other industries.
That's the ripple effect. I mean, think about who is building these data centers. It's Amazon, Google, Meta. They are working on very strict, high-stakes schedules.
And they have the money.
They have the capital to pay premiums that, say, a local hospital project or a residential housing developer just can't match.
So the electrician who is supposed to be wiring a new hospital wing is now at a server farm because the tech company offered a massive wage increase in overtime.
That is exactly what's happening. The trade unions are reporting that data center projects are consuming more manpower than any other single industry. It creates a vacuum.
And you can't just fix this with a coding boot camp.
No, absolutely not. You can teach someone basic Python in a few months. You cannot create a master electrician in 12 weeks. Not safely, anyway. These are dangerous, high-voltage environments. A mistake is it's catastrophic.
That's a serious problem.
It is. And it leads to what Anirban Basu, the chief economist for the Associated Builders and Contractors, he calls it the silver tsunami.
And I'm assuming that refers to the demographics.
It does. The silver tsunami is the mass retirement of the baby boomer generation. These are the most skilled, most experienced tradespeople we have, and they are retiring at the exact moment the demand for their skills is just going vertical.
So for the recruiters listening, the definition of tech talent has really expanded. If you can find the people who physically build the infrastructure, you're holding a very valuable commodity.
The talent war has definitely moved into the physical realm.
I want to shift now to the broader hiring numbers, because this is where Bob Marshall's specific advice to recruiters becomes so vital. We got the ADP National Employment Report on February 4th.
And those ADP numbers were interesting because on the surface, they looked quite negative.
They really did. The private sector only added 22,000 jobs in January. Manufacturing lost 8,000. And what's more, large companies, the ones with over 500 employees, they actually shed 18,000 positions.
So if you're a recruiter just looking at those top-line numbers, you might start to feel a little bit of panic.
Of course, if you only chase the Fortune 500 logos, yeah, panic seems like the right response.
But this is where Bob Marshall's experience just provides so much clarity. He always advises recruiters to look past the huge conglomerates. He says you have to drill down into the medium-sized establishment data.
Medium-sized being companies with, what, 50 to 249 employees.
Exactly. So while the giants were cutting 18,000 jobs, that mid-market segment, they added 41,000 jobs.
That one detail changed the entire story of that report.
It absolutely does. Bubbs calls this segment the bread and butter of the recruiting industry. We all get distracted by the big brand names, but historically, the real hiring volume and the consistent placement fees, it lives in that small to medium business sector.
They're the ones driving growth right now.
The data proves it.
So the strategic shift is obvious. Stop trying to break into the massive companies that are downsizing. The 150-person company down the street is the one that's desperate for talent.
That's where the revenue opportunity is today.
Now, speaking of data that can be deceiving, we need to talk about the JOLTS test report, the Job Openings and Labor Turnover Survey.
That came out on February 5th.
Right. And the headline number for job openings, it dropped to 6.5 million. And to the average person, a downward trend like that suggests the market is drying up.
It certainly looks that way until you apply what Bob Marshall calls the 20/80 rule.
Okay, walk us through the math on that.
It's a fundamental concept for our industry. Bob has argued for years that the published job openings, the ones you see in the JOLTS report, on Indeed, on LinkedIn, that only represents about 20% of the actual market.
It's just the tip of the iceberg.
The visible tip, yes. The other 80% is the hidden job market. These are roles that are filled through networking, internal referrals, and this is crucial.
Yeah.
By engaging a recruiter before the role is ever advertised publicly.
So if we take that 6.5 million number and we treat it as just the 20% that's visible,
then the real number of opportunities is closer to 32.5 million.
That completely reframes the whole scarcity mindset. 32.5 million opportunities is a very robust market.
It is. And it validates the existence of the recruiter. If a candidate is just sitting at home applying on job boards, they're missing 80% of the game. They need a guide to unlock that hidden market.
Which brings us to maybe the most misunderstood number of all in the January data, the unemployment rate. The BLS reported January unemployment at 4.3%.
Which, sounds okay. It's not historically low, but it's not a crisis.
But Bob Marshall argues that this number is basically useless for the professionals listening to this. Why is that?
It all comes down to segmentation. That general unemployment rate, it lumps everyone together. Retail workers, hospitality staff, seasonal labor, and executives.
And agency recruiters aren't usually placing general labor.
Not typically, no. They're placing management and professionals. So we have to look at the unemployment rate for just that group.
And what does that look like?
For the management, professional, and related category, the rate in January was just 2.7%. For college-degreed workers, it was 2.9%.
2.7%. That is an incredibly tight market.
It's even tighter than it looks. To really understand why, we have to touch on a specific piece of economic theory. It's the concept of NIRU.
The non-accelerating inflation rate of unemployment.
That's the one. It's a technical term, but the idea is simple. Economists like Milton Friedman have long argued that 0% unemployment is actually dangerous. It drives massive inflation.
Right.
So a healthy economy needs a natural unemployment rate of somewhere between, say, 4% and 6%. That allows for movement, for training, for structural changes in the economy.
Okay, so if full employment is theoretically around 4%,
Yeah.
and the professional sector is sitting at 2.7%.
And then for our purposes, we're effectively at negative unemployment. Bob Marshall's conclusion is that for high-quality candidates, unemployment is zero. There is no one on the bench waiting to get called into the game.
That's a powerful way to frame it. If the rate is 2.7%, then the only people not working are probably in between jobs or have a major skills mismatch.
Precisely. And this dictates the recruiter's strategy. You cannot just rely on inbound applications because the best people are not looking for work. They're already working.
It changes the job from selection, from sorting resumes to seduction. You have to actively go out and disturb the comfortable.
You have to sell a better opportunity to someone who is already happy where they are. That is the only way you're going to fill roles in a 2.7% market.
There is one last piece of this puzzle that Bob highlighted. It explains why companies are still hiring, despite all the confusion. We need to look at the gross domestic product.
Yes. The numbers for the third quarter of 2025 showed GDP growing at an annual rate of 4.4%. That is strong, hot growth.
And Bob connected this to a quote from Henry Hazlitt's Economics in one lesson. Production is the end, employment merely the means. What's the takeaway there for our audience?
It sounds a little clinical, but it's true. Companies don't hire people out of charity. They hire because they have production goals to meet. If GDP is up 4.4%, it means production is high.
And you can't have high production without people to do the work.
Exactly. Even if a company wants to cut costs, if the demand for their product is there, they have to hire to meet it. High production demands employment.
Which just reinforces the recruiter's value proposition. The companies have the demand, they have the production goals, but they don't have the people because of that 2.7% unemployment rate we just talked about.
It creates the perfect storm for our industry. High demand for production plus low supply of talent equals job security for recruiters who know how to hunt.
Okay, let's summarize what we've learned from Bob Marshall's analysis of the January 2026 reports.
Let's do it.
First, the AI boom is real, but it is being held back by a severe shortage of skilled trades. The talent war right now is for electricians and plumbers, and the silver tsunami of retirements is just making it worse.
Second, don't be fooled by the weak top-line job numbers. The bread and butter, as Bob says, is in the medium-sized businesses. Companies with 50 to 249 employees are the ones hiring right now.
Third, the Jolte's data gives a false impression of scarcity. That 6.5 million openings is just the visible 20%. The real opportunity is in the hidden 80% that only recruiters can really access.
And finally, for the professional and college-educated sector, unemployment is effectively zero. We are well below the natural rate of full employment. Everyone worth hiring is already employed.
It paints a clear picture of a market that demands a proactive, aggressive recruiting strategy. You cannot just wait for the phone to ring.
Not in 2026, no.
I want to leave you with a thought. Based on everything we've talked about today, we are looking at a year where the physical world is putting a leash on the digital world. We have billions of dollars in AI investment just waiting for someone to install a cooling pipe. We have a demographic cliff where all the experts are retiring.
It's a major inflection point.
So here's the question. If the best talent isn't on the job boards and the experts are leaving the workforce, will 2026 be the year where recruitment stops being a human resources function and finally becomes a pure sales and marketing function?
Yeah.
Because if you aren't selling the opportunity to someone who isn't looking, you might not be hiring at all.
That is the reality we're facing.
Thank you all for listening to this breakdown of the Bob Marshall January reports. We will be back next time to see if the February data shifts this narrative.
Until then, happy hunting.
I'm Mark.
And I'm Sarah.
This has been the HireWire Podcast.